Today we're walking the Sicklesmere Railway path, which begins with this fairly unpromising looking permissive path. Permissive path sounds like an interesting place to be, but I haven't noticed too much permissive behaviour so far along here. But we do have our friendly horses wearing appropriately their raincoats and munching away apparently contentedly. Hello horse, are you contented? I take that as a yes, you look pretty laid back to me. And the path now runs alongside the paddock. This used to be an unfenced field. You could just pick your path across the field, but now we have this generous bit of land between the hedge and the fence as our permissive path, which is okay by me. So we approach this small gate on the left, which brings us to the path proper. I think I called it the Sicklesmere Railway Line path in my introduction. I think strictly speaking it's actually the Whelnetham Railway Walk. There we are, it's official. And there are lots of rules too. Fundamentally, it's for walking. The weather isn't making it so plain, but meteorologically it's spring right now. In terms of weather, it's sort of gently drizzling. So we start the path proper. Behind us, there is the main entrance, which has a rather forbidding sign on it telling us that this is actually a rubbish tip. But hey, it's quite a nice looking rubbish tip. So let's get going. We've only done a few yards, but if you're tired already, then we have a seat, which I assume WPC is Whelnetham Parish Council. This area always reminds me of a mini amphitheatre. I sort of want to leap up there in front of the audience and do the Friends, Romans, Countrymen speech. But perhaps not today. There's the path ahead. It's sort of wet today, but because it's a railway line path, most of it is still pretty well surfaced and not too muddy, although there are the odd bits of mud that make it a bit like Torvill and Dean Go Mud Wrestling. But it's mostly fine even today. So onwards, and in a little while upwards too. As you can hear, we're quite close to the main road here, but looking the other way towards, this is looking towards Little Whelnetham, you can see that it's actually pleasantly rural. And here's a path dropping down to the main A134 with ample traffic considering we're still in lockdown. These steps go down to what used to be the Eagle pub. It was the local that was favoured by the locals. It's looking a bit smarter now. It's been turned into a business centre. I think it's shared office space. But in the good old days you could walk along this path down the steps into the pub. Times change. But the railway line continues for us. Here, peeping through the trees, we can just about see little Whelnetham Church. We'll pass a crossroads in a second that will take us on a path to Little Whelnetham Church. That's not the way for today, but it's another interesting walk that we can take from here. It's a wonderful centre for many walks from here. This house always looks as though it's in the wrong country. I think it ought to be somewhere in America in vast open spaces, but here it is, tucked just between the old railway line and the road on the outskirts of Sicklesmere. We're now approaching one of those parts of the railway line that has been buried under rubbish, as far as I can tell. This used to be a rubbish tip, as I said at the beginning, and we head up the hill across the top of the rubbish. And sadly, after enjoying the good drainage of the old railway track, it all gets a bit interesting and slippery for a few yards. So I'll sign off here so you don't witness me falling flat on my face in the mud. If you ever needed evidence that this used to be a rubbish tip, and also evidence of how careless we've been historically with how we get rid of our rubbish, you can see the fragments of plastic that continually surface from this tip over the years. It's been closed for decades, but the plastic doesn't really disappear. I guess one day we will learn our lesson. But it's mostly hidden by the undergrowth, down nearly at the top of the slippery bit, where the surface becomes a little more manageable. There we go. So it opens out into what becomes quite a wild area in the summer, but at the moment fruit and flowers are fairly limited. Lots of blackberries in months to come. This is an open area that's very favoured by rabbits and the odd muntjac deer. And right now we've got a reminder, thank goodness, spring is on its way and we're on our way too. We quite often meet at crossroads in our life, and we meet at crossroads here. So down to our left we can go over the stile that will lead to Little Whelnetham, or we can go right, which leads to the main road, and also other walks near Great Whelnetham. As we can see, this this is also part of St Edmunds Way, which is something I haven't really explored so far. But we're not going to go left or right, we're going to go back to our path. Just a few steps on, we meet the bridge that goes over the stream. It's a good place for dogs to cool down just there. Here we see results of a while ago now, a tree came down right across the path. But anyway, that's behind us. We'll head up, continue on our way. And just a few steps on from the crossroads, we're a little more distant from the road now. Still, we can hear it. So for those who might know the local area, that is Kennel Lane. And then over here on our left, there is Water Lane going along the other side of that hedge near the house. That will follow the river. But we're following the railway. It's going to get quieter as we leave the road now. As we come along here, we see the first of two homes for large furry animals that we're going to see along here. They've dug into the embankment and obviously created quite an impressive hotel. So let's move on now and follow the path. It's quite nicely surfaced here, quite quiet. We're sheltered from the wind and it's not too muddy. You can just imagine a train trundling along here heading south from Bury St Edmunds, approaching the station in a little while. It's nice and peaceful here. I can hear the wind rushing past overhead, but here we're very sheltered, which I guess makes it a nice place for animals to burrow. Seeing this, I guess it's badgers. I'm not too good on this sort of thing, but certainly quite a township has been built up here. Very impressive. We're now in a cutting, giving us some shelter from the wind. Very soon we're going to move from the cutting to an embankment where I expect we'll get rather more clobbered by the squally weather that we've got today. It's a bit muddy here, but we'll survive. Yet more evidence here of the history as a rubbish dump. So state-sponsored vandalism of the countryside, I guess. And we're going to be going on through the mud. It's a shame they didn't leave the track bed there. It'd be much better drained. Here we are, approaching a tree in memory of David Bulmer. I remember David, he was one of those people every village needs in order to create some community spirit and make things happen. And he worked really hard on making this railway line. And over here we have a little bit of repurposed railway hardware, making a bench for people to rest and reflect on their walk near the end. Not sure if you'll be able to hear me here, it's rather windy, but this is the last piece of the railway line walk. Just a little stretch, you can see the sign the end there in the distance, looking very much like a railway, which of course it was. Think of the amount of work to create one of these things. So we've reached the end of the Whelnetham Railway Walk itself, which was certainly created in the time I've lived here. And we can see that Suffolk County Council give us a lovely greeting to say that as far as they're concerned, it's actually a landfill site, not a railway walk. But hey, there we go. There you can see down the steps to the road, the path up the other side, which we'll follow in a second. Here we are on the steps, looking back the way we came. You can see that, contrary to what the weather might be suggesting, spring is indeed on its way. Here's the road. So it would have been a lot easier if they'd left the bridge in place, but as it is, we have the steps and the banks either side now. We've reached the road at the bottom now, and the path does continue upwards, and that leads to Whelnetham station. Some of the station buildings are still there, so I guess we could continue across the road and see the station. Here we go. I don't think I'm going to get run over. Fortunately, we do have steps of a sort cut in this path. See you at the top. So here we are approaching the top of that little hill now. As we wander along here, there are little bits of railway hardware here and there, the odd bits of concrete still remaining, having been closed for a very long time. Here we've got a pile of what I guess are old cable ducts or something. They probably go back to the time of the railway. They've just been lying here ever since, just off the path. Here's the path along here, still heading towards Whelnetham station, which appropriately enough is at the top of Station Hill. And a few more relics here. Yet more ducting and a brick built hut, well overgrown now. So here we are approaching the end of this. We deviate here from the line of the railway. This is the area of the station. And here is the old station house. Won't shoot for too long, the neighbours will wonder why I'm taking pictures of their house. So we'll call this the end of the walk. You can access the walk from this end as well, which is Station Hill, which is a dead end.